Okay, I'm Ivan McLean and live in Portland, Oregon, and I am a sculptor. I do stuff in a variety of materials and styles. I do all kinds of metals. I do things in glass. I do things carving in wood and stone. Pretty much anything I get a chance to do, I will try to do. There was a point then, after I graduated, I went into the Peace Corps in the Philippines, and when I came home, I was like, well, what am I going to do? And so I started welding things. My brother had done some welding, and said, well, let's make some gates and fences. So we started doing that, and then we'd make fun little things, take it to the flea market in Sausalito. And kind of like, it was amazing, but people would come and they would buy these little weird things we made. And I still remember I made this one little object, and it was like truly a sculptural, no function whatsoever. And this guy bought it, and it was just like, it was really life-changing. Primarily just do more or less large-scale sculpture, and I do the last few years I've been doing a lot of sphere-shaped things, and for a variety of projects across the country, and then other times just more like large sculptural objects. The spheres came some years ago. I had gotten these old propane tanks from the late 1940s, and what it was, there was a company that made sea mines for the war, and then after the war they started making propane tanks because they had all the equipment to make these things. And so I had some in the shop, and I would cut them up into the shapes, really nice compound curves for doing sculptures. And then I had one laying in the shop, tons of scrap laying around. I was like, wow, I may as well just cover one in scrap, cut it in half, and then made it this cool sphere. And I started doing those more just for fun, for friends, and for garden art kind of things. And then they developed, became a little bit more sophisticated, and then one camping trip, I was like, how could I make one of any size? And I finally figured out how to do them any size. And they've been really accepted quite well around the country, so I've gotten to do some really fun projects with them. I think the creativity comes from having to come up with the design that is unusual and kind of lasting, and that can fit in and yet not fit in, that kind of can stand out. It's a tough one, and I think the craftsmanship, and that's for years of having done production work where I can just weld without having to think about it. I think that's very important. So when I go to make something, I don't really have to think about how I'm going to make it. I can have a design and then I can just make it, and there's not a lot of thought about how to do it. So I already have that kind of experience about how it's going to work. The Dragon is actually, there's a music festival called What the Festival, and the founder and the creator of the festival is Glenn and Tiffany Boyd. And Glenn is a guy who has big ideas, and will come up and he'll just go like, hey, what do you think about doing this, this 70-foot Dragon DJ booth? And it's really fun because last year I was so busy. I told him, man, it was like in March, and I was like, man, I'm pretty much booked for the year. And he's like, oh, come on. And so I came up with a little kind of a concept piece, a little maquette. And then from the maquette, I took it to a structural engineer, with like the pieces I wanted to use. The structural engineer okayed everything, got it to the place, and then the head, I had to use one company to do some digital scanning for the head. We created cut files, laser cut stainless steel panels, put the head together, which I ended up with a pile of 150 different pieces, and they were supposed to be marked with part numbers, and they weren't. So I had 150 pieces of stainless steel with no part numbers, and we had like 2 weeks to get all this done. And so we anyway, to make a long story short, we get it all out to the ranch where the festival is. We put stuff together. Everything seems to go together well. Man, the day of the festival, the thing is just looking great. My favorite client of all time was a local collector, Ed Cardura, who was really famous in Portland because he collected like all the big New York artists back before they were really well known. And he came to me at one point. He had seen a piece, and it just goes, make anything you want for my home in Palm Springs. And it was just like such kind of validation. But he was just more like, whatever you want. I mean, his only qualification was he wanted something orange. So that was, like I made the sculpture, it ended up being orange, it looked great, but it was really fun to have that freedom. Other people can be very specific, and I'm working on one project now where the people want something that is very specific. And at first I was kind of like, not that excited about doing it, but then when I started exploring kind of it was like, oh, that could be really cool. So, collaboration, collaboration can be really good. I do enjoy working by myself for the most part. I kind of end up having an idea and I know what I want to do, and then I can just go ahead and make it. But then I have to do a lot of collaboration, oftentimes with landscape architects or architects, developers, people, clients who have an idea of what they want to see, and I'll work with them to kind of achieve that goal. But like everything, every sculpture I've made kind of came from like, here's a shape, and then you kind of explore that shape. for that material. I think this kind of a project is very fun. I mean, I do enjoy collaborating with people on various projects, because over the course of the years I've done some things with people like at a music festival where it's really like working with people who you're not used to being with, and ideas that you haven't done before, like a 10-foot disco ball or a 70-foot Dragon DJ booth, something that's really unusual and fun. I feel comfortable and excited about doing that.